So how many of you have received a Christmas present? Let me do it this way. How many of you have given a Christmas present and they receive the gift and they either just kind of like, oh, nice. They maybe open it and then they just set it aside. How did that feel? Did you feel like it was really appreciated and valued? No. Yeah. What else did it do to you? What would have been a better experience? Let me ask it that way. What would have been a better experience?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Or open it up and check it out and like see how it works. Would that have made you feel better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm very aware right now that I have a gift sitting on my office shelf that my daughter gave me for Christmas that I haven't even opened. And I feel bad, but it's not a political statement, not whatever. It's just my personal choice. I'm not a big fan of Alexa. I'm not a fan of having that technology in my house any more than it already is in my phone, just personal bias. My son has got a whole Google Home. You know, he's the ad that you walk in, Google, turn on the lights. Hey, Google, do this. And I'm just like, okay, do you know how to use your finger, honey? But she gave me an Alexa photo thing for Christmas, and I have no interest in opening it. And I'm aware that the interpretation of that is I don't love her, or not that I don't love her, but it's just kind of this weird, wonky feeling when you give a gift that's not actually opened and appreciated. And so it's kind of funny because I'm very cognizant of it, and yet I have no desire to open it up. I have just none. Step over here for a minute. God made you as a gift to the people around you. Have you taken the time to open the package of you? How many of us actually take the time to get to know this gift that God has given? I'm given as a gift to you, for God so loved the world that he sent Kris. How's that for blasphemy? Not really, because guess what? God so loved the world that he sent Krista. Go in and put your name in it. Just say it out loud. For God so loved the world, and put your name in it. Yeah. He sent you with all your beauty, all your intricate parts, all your personality quirks and joys and fun things as a gift to the people around you. So today we're going to unpack a little bit of what's in that gift, because this is a way that we can bring joy to the heart of the Father. When I first started doing this, I was like, oh, is this, God, how do you feel about this? And he showed me this image. He's like, Kris, if you, gave a gift and nobody took the time to open it, how would that feel to you? He's like, you're made in my image. He's like, I love it when my kids unpack who they are and get to discover who they are, understand how they're wired, understand where they best show up, understand that Kris doesn't color inside the lines real well, and that's okay, because I'm his joyful little sprite that, does these little things over here. And my husband is on the other side going back inside the lines. Kris, come on. It makes him a great engineer. My daughter's good in accounting because she stays inside the lines. You guys want your accounting people to stay inside the lines. It just goes better, okay? Just trust me. You do not want me for your accounting person. You want me for your motivational speaker to get you to laugh? Yes. Not for your accounting person, okay? So how does this relate to your ministries? What if better understanding yourself actually helps you show up better for the client in front of you? What if you understanding like, hey, I like to run at the speed of light, and my client, can I pick on you?
Yeah, sure.
I won't pick on you. What if your client has a different pace? And that's actually one of the things you and I talked about when we first started coaching, is some of the coaches you knew were like, boom, 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 get it done, get it done, get it done. And you're not wired that way. And to have someone that understands and appreciates, I'm going to stress her out if I give her 50 things to do in a week, right? It's better if I say, okay, Marie, what are the 2 things you want to commit to this week, right? When you're praying with somebody, understanding, is this a person that needs clarity, and needs you to spell things out, or is this a person that wants lots of freedom? Kasha, you want to open that up again? It's getting warm in here. What do you think, you guys? I don't want to put you guys all to sleep. You know, it's either warm or it's me, but I'm going to blame it on the warmth of the room. Anyway, so have you ever been baffled by someone's reaction to something? Have you ever wondered, like, what the heck were they thinking? Like, really? How did they get that out of that? You ever been there? I've been there. Maybe you meant well. Maybe they meant well. But confusion and frustration happened, right? So, give you a couple scenarios just in case you can't relate to this. Because no one can ever relate to different people, right? Different personalities. 2 women are on a prayer team at a church. We'll just start right there. That could be an interesting dynamic, right? 2 women, 4 opinions already, Pat. Just warning you. Oh, wait, you know this. No idea. I'll talk to Jolene later. First one says, oh my goodness, I just had the best idea ever. We could do a retreat. We could do it this way. Let's go. Kasha, this is my party, right? This is you and I right here. Like, okay, we could go zip lining. We could have karaoke. This would be a great retreat. Every woman's going to be blessed. And what's happening? Benita's going, not the plan. I'm looking at Benita going, yep, I know she's already stressing out. She's like, who did I partner with? How did I do this? Second one is just like, do you have a budget breakdown for that? Do you know how much it's going to cost to go ziplining and have karaoke? Like, I'm not going to be in front of people. I'm not going to do karaoke. Krista can bring all the sound equipment she wants, but I'm not going to dance. Right? How is that? They're both kingdom children. Like, why can we have such a dramatic difference? What if it can be explained through some of the personality profiles? You know, the first one's baffled. Why the second one's excited? First one's just like feeling rejected. Like, they don't like my idea. Nobody ever wants to have fun. It's a no I ever. Which will mean more to you in a second. And the second one's already got the whole email sequence laid out and all the budget laid out and everything else. And that the first one's just like, you're doing what? You know? Recognizing it's a difference in how God wired them, right? The body, we need both parts, right? Because, like, which one's more important to that team? Neither one. They're both relevant. One sees possibilities, one sees tasks. One sees ideas, one sees the to-do list. They're just totally wired different. You could put that as a husband and wife, too. Right here. Or 2 pastors are organizing an office move. The first one says, okay, let's move all the filing cabinets over here. We'll get this done today. And then, you know, when the staff come in, they'll just figure it out. And the second staff pastor is like, yeah, but we want to make sure they like it. We want to make sure it flows well. We want to do that. And the first one's like, no, we just need to get it done. Okay, they can figure it out when they get here. And all of a sudden we have friction between 2 pastors. No one's ever seen those kind of situations, have they? No, of course we have. We laugh at it because it's real. You know, one pastor's spending an hour making a careful layout, actually measuring the filing cabinets are 36 inches. So if we set it here, you got somebody in your life that's done that, or do you do that? Maybe. So how are you going to do prayer ministry different than the person who's just going to jump in and just go swimming? You're going to think about, like, you're going to think through what you say before you go there, aren't you? Yeah. And are you going to be tempted? Could you be tempted to be frustrated with the partner who's just, blah, 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 blah. Would you just shut up for a minute and let the person process? Yeah. And how we do ministry is different. And guess what? Kind of the lock and key, who do we receive better from? Probably someone who's wired like us, who gets us, right? Rapport is an acronym for my brain. Whenever I hear the word rapport, really all people prefer others reflecting themselves. Really all people prefer others reflecting themselves. We tend to easily get along with the person who runs at the pace or sees the details the way we see them. And we tend to assume, until we don't, that everybody else sees the world the way we do. Years ago, as a nurse manager, I had a staff member one day. She was just like, Kris, you keep saying this, but I really don't see it the way you do it. And it was just kind of like we were talking about a client thing, but it was like a in my face moment. I've got a pair of sunglasses that I pull out a lot of times in presentations like this, and I'm like, this is the way I see the world. And then I put on another pair and I say, and this is the way you might see the world. And recognizing there's not good or bad, it's just different. Married couple goes out for lunch. The first spouse has researched the best place with all the right carbs, with all the right protein, with all the right organic things. And the second one's like, let's just go. Right? Different personalities, different styles. Which one's right or wrong? Neither one. But recognizing that we're different and we see the world differently. And sometimes we don't even recognize how differently we see it. And just pausing and hearing and appreciating that person. So by the end of today, you're going to walk away knowing a little bit more about yourself. Would that be worth your time? Yeah. Okay. Knowing a little bit more about 4 basic types of personality. Now, I do a bunch of different profile assessments. So this is just one. I'm like, okay, which one do I bring to the table today? Like, because this is like my jam. I just got certified in another one recently. It's all about find your why. It's like, I just am, my daughter's writing an essay right now for school about fearfully and wonderfully made. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, where are you going to start, Kayla? Are you going to talk about the physiology? Are you going to talk about the personality? Are you going to talk about this? And she goes, Mom, I'm just going to talk about the general concept. Because if you need to, I can give you this resource, and I can give you this resource, and I can give you this resource. And she's like, Mom. Okay, stop. Okay. But so today I'm going to introduce you to DISC, which is the reason I shared this one is this is the most common one that's used in the marketplace today. This is a high-level one that talks about how people respond to their environment, how you tend to react, okay? It's not about why, and it's not an IQ test, okay? Just know that. This is just about how you tend to respond, okay? And you'll not only have a better understanding of why people act the way they do, but you're also going to have a powerful framework for you to watch people that you're ministering to. And that's the biggest piece, right? Like paying attention, there are clues that you can catch. Love hanging around with these two because they'll be like, oh, do you think she's a type 1? Do you think she's a type 2? And like they're watching for cues all the time. It's kind of fun. But it's like you start to put on this set of glasses that you're starting to watch and get to know the people you're working with. And it's a part of opening that Christmas gift, and opening that person in front of you and a way of honoring God. I truly believe it's a way of honoring your Father in heaven because you're celebrating that person in front of you. So my personal discovery of DISC goes back to Tom and I were married in 1991. Kind of scary because that was, a couple of minutes ago. And I just discovered last night, I've been with this guy for over 35 years, you guys, and I just discovered something last night that I have never known about my husband. You think after 35 years, we've known each other since I was a junior in high school. We didn't start, we didn't get married, obviously, till I was in college. You would think I would know pretty much high level most things of his life. Last night we got talking, and somehow I got talking about the sport of wrestling. And my daughters, thank you very much, said, well, Dad, when you wrestled, I'm like, Mapleton had a wrestling team? What? When did you wrestle? And he's like 7th and 8th grade. Okay. Note to self, you never stop learning about people in your life. I've been with him 35 years and I still don't know it all. I know I don't know it all, but that was kind of like, that's a high enough level thing. You would have thought somewhere in my data file I would have known that. The kids were laughing because they knew something about Dad before Mom did. They thought that was pretty cool. So, but Tom and I had been married in 91. In 1998, 99, 8 years. What happens usually about 7, 8 years is you start having that, the 7-year itch, the reality, oh, this is my life. No, this is not a forecast for you. This is an opportunity because what happens is we start to kind of get established in a rhythm, right? And we start to go. And that was the year my 2 brothers were getting married. And we had participated in a Weekend to Remember. How many of you have heard of that Dennis Rainey Weekend to Remember? Highly recommend that weekend. And we got to go as alumni that year because we were going, that was our wedding gift to my brothers. And we got to go as alumni. And in the alumni session, they did a DISC inventory. I had never been introduced to DISC prior to that. And they had us just do a high level, kind of like what we're going to do today. Crazy thing, I thought I knew my husband. I had actually just bought the book, I Know I Love You, but Why Are We So Different, or something like that. It was a LaHaye book. It's a great title. I don't know that I've read more than half of it because the title alone was just like my reminder, like just look at the title every day and go, okay, yeah, you're different. Okay, like, because there was times I was like, dear God, man. Like, yeah, we were just having all the real moments, right? Not that we didn't love each other, but we were just having the real moments of bumping each other, And we did our profile that day, high level. And I will never forget, they had us do the exercise and they had us like lay them. Somehow they had us on, the papers must have been like a litmus paper or something. And they had us lay our profiles on top of each other so you could see each other's, that like it was a grid and you could see through and they were like laying on top of each other. And I will never forget that image because mine went like this and Tom's went like this. And I went, you think we're different? like, oh, like sometimes I can't see the forest for the trees, It's like, oh, I'm the kid that sometimes I forget the obvious. Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time in a land far away, this may or may not happen. Yeah, it did happen. I'm in 5th grade science and they're talking about all the planets and all the moons each planet has. And I am like so captivated with this new information that I raised my hand. And what do you think the question I asked was?
How many moons do we have?
I was so deep in the weeds. It's like I forgot what I already knew. Like, oh, there's one. Yeah, that's how that works. Like, as they lay those profiles on top of each other, it's like, oh, yeah, we're different. That's right. How different are we? Well, there you go. That's how different we are. And that day will forever, I joke that saved our marriage. And Tom's like, it didn't save our marriage. I'm like, it probably helped our marriage a lot. Because all of a sudden at that moment, I understood he wasn't being a butt to always to say no when he wanted 10 details. And I'm like, just do it. It doesn't matter. We'll figure it out as we go. And he's like, no, we need to have this planned out. And I'm like, no, we don't. That's exhausting. Or, when we're driving down the highway and I see a garage sale sign and I'm like, squirrel. And he's like, we are going to this store. This is the agenda. This is exactly what we are buying from the store today, Kris. And I'm like, ugh. So we were having that real moment. And all of a sudden I had a language that was objective that I could say, oh, it's not him trying to control me. It's him needing to understand his biggest emotional trigger was he needed to have all the details right. My biggest emotional trigger was that I wanted to be loved and affirmed and appreciated. Thank you very much. And he's just like, really? You're exhausting me. Nobody relates to this, right? Nobody else has any clue what this is about. Yeah, right. So that was the day that I look back at DISC, what we're going to do today. Like, how many of you have experience with DISC at all? Awesome. How many of you have never even heard this term before? Awesome. Okay. So understanding like, oh my goodness, we really are wired different. And it's not like this is Jehovah Sneaky's sense of humor. Like here, opposites attract and then they attack. I joke all the time, opposites attract, and I just kind of pregnant pause, and then they attack. And then learning how to get along, like how do we get along and how do we work together? So learning that he was task and detail. I am people. Oh, and by the way, I'm people. And by the way, he's task and he's detail. Like, oh my gosh, can you see some different frequencies going off here? Can you see some, I make impulsive actions. It's turn. There's a garage sale. There might be a really good deal over there. There might be some long lost treasure that we didn't know we needed. That's right there. And he's like, and the grocery store is right here. I now understood why I was having friction with different pastors that I had worked with over the years. All of a sudden I understood like, oh, this is why. Or this is why I had so much conflict with my mom. This is why I needed prayer ministry in the first place. My mom all the time when I was a kid was like, why do you have to be so rebellious? And I was so devastated when she would say that. And I think for the first few years of my life as an adult getting prayer ministry, it was like, I'm so hurt. My mom thought I was rebellious. And I'm like, now I look at my profile, I'm like, yeah, you're a low compliance score. You didn't color inside the lines. Why do you think she thought you were rebellious? And that's the beauty of recognizing when we're ministering with people that there might be wounds that go back to misunderstanding, to conflict based on misunderstanding. Because just as much in the human psyche, Kathy can speak to this, as a nurse, we need to have what? Food, air, shelter. We need the water. We need, these basic things. Emotionally, we need to be seen. We need to be heard. And we need to be appreciated. No matter how we're wired. Do you see me? Do you hear me? Do you value me? And when we don't understand our own wiring and understand our own need, like I'm a high I. I love words of affirmation. I love encouragement. I'm loving my 17-year-old right now because she comes out of the bathroom last night. She goes, all right, you guys, I have been working on healthy eating now since January, and I need some words of affirmation. What have you noticed? And I'm like, all righty then. I will call you out and celebrate the fact that you know what you need and you're asking for it. You're not sitting here in a passive aggressive state. What's that?
That's actually really incredible that she can communicate.
Oh, I know, right? I was actually, Tom just looked at me last night when she did that. He's like, really? He's like, what have we done? I'm like, this is really cool. Because, how many of you had to learn to put your own pants on and tie your own shoes? Yeah. Okay, learning what I need is not a bad thing. I need oxygen. If you come up here to me, Krista, and you start putting your hands around my neck, I'm going to start fighting you. And there's going to come a point. I might yeah. But recognizing what we need and that there is no shame in that. Recognizing that this is part of the beauty of understanding how God wired you. And then also recognizing that people you're ministering to probably have a deficit somewhere in that space that they didn't even know what they needed. Their bodies maybe needed magnesium, and they didn't know they needed magnesium. And now they can be intentional to go after magnesium. But first, let's heal the wound that's back here. Let's take care of the abscess so that when we put the proverbial magnesium in their diet, they can do it. And now they can be intentional to go, okay, how do I appropriately, in a healthy way, bring in that and be like my daughter? Hey, I need some words of affirmation, y'all. That's not shameful. That's not wrong. It's actually she was doing it in a healthy way. She was trying to build herself up. But hey, at the same time, can you help me here? This is part of being part of a body. Hey, Jen, I'm struggling today. Can you help me here? Can we pray through this together? I'm really getting hit. Or, hey, I'm getting married in 4 days. And you guys, I'm feeling this. Reaching out and actually identifying and empowering that at the end of the day, we want to empower the people we're ministering to not only heal this, but we don't want to create a codependency on us. We want to be able to hey, how can we come alongside you and support you to stay well? Kris Vallotton in his book, Supernatural Lifestyle, talks about at the end of the book, I love this. He says, I believe we're coming into a day where not only are we going to get people healed, we're going to teach them how to stay healed. Come on, you guys. There's enough people out there that need healing. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over. We need them to be able to own it. And I submit to you that part of that is helping them unpack who God is and who they are so that they can go after it. Fair? So, recognizing that we're going to customize how we talk to people. Recognizing that we can learn. If I go to Spain, am I going to keep insisting that they speak English? It's going to be stupid, right? Because at the end of the day, they're going to go really? No. But when we go to the world, if we can learn to pay attention to the clues, the people we're ministering, pay attention and mimic back to them how they're speaking or actually speak a couple words in their language. This is one of the things I want the church to continue to grow in. I'm seeing growth in it and I love it. Growing in how we can speak their language. Jesus was Emmanuel. He came to us and spoke our language. Not insisting that we speak the language of heaven right away, but he came and spoke our language. And it even shows up in how he talks to the disciples. He speaks to John, the beloved. And he's, I'm sure John is this high S, which we'll talk about in a minute. He's the stable, steady love bug. He's my Kayla, my daughter Kayla. She just loves to be close to mom. Just don't rock my boat too far, too fast, And Jesus knew that about John. He gave John a space to just be there and snuggle with him. Oh, wait, to lean on the beloved. Let me get the proper English. Let's just call it for what it was. John was a love bug, right? Peter, that flamboyant, feisty, going, get behind me, Peter. You know, he calls him out on it. He sets him in his place. Jesus customized how he spoke to his disciples. He provided us a role model in how he talked to people. So we're going to talk a little bit here about what are the 4 types. Now this goes back, DISC, like I said, is probably the oldest personality profile out there. It goes back actually to Hippocrates. Hippocrates said there was 4 blood types. We've gone a little further than that. We know it's not 4 blood types anymore. We now know it's 4 different types of personality. There's a D, an I, an S, and a C, according to this style, what they progressed with it. Now D, we'll say, is direct. How many of you know some direct people? Yeah. How many people sometimes interpret direct people as rude and abrasive? Yeah, yeah. Or have been called that yourself. And recognizing God uses all types. He's not ashamed of you being direct or ashamed of that person being direct. That's what their wiring is. And we need some people who are direct. My pastor's wife tells the story of being in a workshop like this where they put all the D's in a section, all the I's, all the S's, all the C's in a section. And she was in the S's. And at the time, they gave them an assignment, like in your group, decide who's going to be the leader, who's going to come to the front of the room and talk. This S group over here, they're all the stable steadies, and they're all the collaborators, and they're all like, you go, no, you go, no, you go, no, you go. I'm not doing it, you know? And all of a sudden she said, I had this light bulb moment of, oh my gosh, this is why I need D's in my life. Because somebody's got to take charge of this ship, you know? Like, and yet the American church, how many pastors do we have that are high S's over here? And they're the supporters, and they're the nurturers, and that's great until we need some things to move forward. And this is where I love the 5-fold ministry. And this is just my personal little soapbox, but it's like we need all the different types. We need the directors. We need the conductors. We need the influencers, okay? So D's are direct. We need them. Paul was probably a D. Probably is a D. Probably still in eternity is still probably telling God how to do it. I don't know. This is probably the worst. Let's see. I's are the influencers. Yeah, Kasha, Kris, a few others in the room. Jen, you're probably a DI or an ID. ID, yeah. I's are that interactive influencer. Peter. We open our mouths, we chat, and sometimes our mouths get us in trouble. Said 1, 2, or 3 in the room, yeah. So here's the fun part. I'll explain this in a little bit, but each one of them has either a people focus or a task focus, and they're either fast-paced or slow-paced. Let's do this. Do you think the D's? Fast. And task or people? Task, yep. How about the I's?
Fast.
Yep. Yep, that too. Okay. S's is all about stability. Yeah.
If ain't rocking, it ain't going.
Hey, here's what. 70% of the population is a high S. 70%.
Those are not the people on Facebook.
Here's the beauty of God's design. Are you glad that it's not 70% D's?
Yes.
I mean, can you imagine if we had 70% of the population as high D's, how many rooster fights would be happening every day? Yeah. Actually, 7%. I believe I'm going to get these. Where's the high C in the room? They'll make sure I get my math right. This isn't going to be exactly right, but this is about. Am I missing one? It's probably these guys. They're probably 2. I'm a little biased. It doesn't matter. Yeah, right? So what do you think the S's are? Task or people? People. And what do you think their pace is? Slow. They're the stables. I don't like to call them slow. They get kind of offended when we do that. I call them the steadies. They're steadies. They're steady. Yeah, they keep things moving. Yeah, they might be a sloth. Sorry, that was a little slide over this direction. Did I just pick on you in public? I did, didn't I? We were doing some premarital coaching. Can I say this? And now that I've already started. Don't you like how an high eye works? My wedding gift to these guys was some premarital coaching and doing some stuff around this because, like, I believe in this stuff, right? This is what I invest in with people. And you guys are talking one day and you're like, oh, yeah, we're both high S's. We're both, what is your nickname? We're the sloth couple. And just started laughing. And the fun part is I get to drop off or you get to take it home today. I was going to bring it down here today. My daughter got gifted this huge sloth from like a Valley Fair type stuff thing. And it has been taking up room in my closet for a really long time. And I had him on one of our Zoom calls the other day. I'm like, hi. How are you today? I was having way too much fun at their expense. No. But I said, this sloth might need a new home. So, but just recognizing that S's, they're those steady. They're the ones that, what's funny is a lot of organizations have that high D out in front. They're visionary and they're going and they're doing. And the high S's in the room are going, holy crap, we're going to have to implement this. And they're feeling their stress level go. And then there's those high C's in the room that are conscientious. I could put compliant. That's my, it's my husband. It's my daughter. What do you think they are? Task? Huh? They tend to be perfectionists because we'll go back. Each one of these have, they're the rule followers. Yep. Just for full disclosure, my score right here is a 4 out of 100. And they all went, oh, it all makes sense now. I had the highest compliment ever a couple of years back. I was in a business networking group and I walked them through this. And I said, so what do you think I am? I hadn't disclosed anything about myself at that point. And one of the guys in the room raised his hand and he goes, I think you're a high C. And I'm like, yes. Because to me, what that said is I've done enough work that what I say all the time is where you're wired does not become your excuse. It becomes your awareness. And sometimes what happens is people go into like, wah, 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 I'm a low C, I can't follow the rules, so don't expect me to, which is a bunch of BS. It's a belief system, by the way. Just in case you thought it was like something with a bull. It's a belief system. Wink, 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 wink. No, it's not a matter of you can't. It's a matter of recognizing that, you know what? It takes me a lot of energy and intention and focus when I do my taxes. I'm very intentional, I'm very deliberate, and I'm very exhausted by the end of the day. Now, I have a daughter who's a 4 in the eye. I'm a 97. Here. Being in front of the room with y'all, this is not hard for me. This is fun. If you put my daughter up here, she's a 4. She loved COVID. Mom, do you realize I haven't come out of the house in 32 days? And are you bragging or complaining? She's like, that's lovely. Dear God, I'm going nuts, but you're okay, all right. And just recognizing, like, when you're working with people, different people show up in different ways, right? Like, what's going to be exhausting to you in ministry if you're a low I and you're talking to people and interacting with people all day? Even though you love them, it might be exhausting. The other thing that might be exhausting for you if you're in prayer ministry, if you're a high I, is you keeping your mouth shut and letting that person in front of you talk and pray through their problem. You know? There's some healing ministers in the room that'll talk to you later. Confess your faults to one another and you... But recognizing these compliant people, my daughter and my husband actually love keeping the rules. They actually love setting the cruise control on the car and staying inside the car. Dear God. You're right.
My husband's like, why you don't use it? I'm like, because I want to be in control.
Says her high D right there. Do you think compliance or task or people? Task. And they're stable. Steady. So here's the interesting thing. Each one of these has an emotional trigger. Each one of them has something that can get hot. And it's kind of fun to look through scripture and through the lens of this. But who do you think right off the top, before I go into emotional triggers, who do you think could be a high D in scripture? Possible. Paul. Paul is a high D. Like, look at his argument later in the book of Acts when he's having an argument with Barnabas about John Mark. This kid is not following through on his commitments. He's not sticking by me. He doesn't deserve to be with me in ministry anymore. Boom. High D. He's direct. He doesn't care. He's about the task. We got to evangelize these people. We got to go. We got to do. Okay? High I. I've kind of alluded to it, but who do you think? Peter. Yeah, Peter. Peter's my friend. Gosh, and Kris. Maybe a little bit of Jen. But I don't want to pick on her, make her feel attacked. No, I'm just kidding. She's ignoring me.
My compliance score is a 6, so I'm not doing much better.
You're right there with me. Who do you think is a high S in scripture? Yeah, right? Stephen? Sure. Maybe? I think John. I think Barnabas, the one that traveled, he was the son of encouragement. Your high S's tend to be your supporters, your nurses. People who have a heart and a care for people are those supporters. Not all nurses are S's, but a lot of nurses are S's, just by nature of 70% of the population is there. But
What were the Sons of Thunder?
Sons of Thunder were probably D's, is my suspicion, because they wanted to take charge and be in leadership and like give me the title and give me the role, is my suspect. Task-oriented. What'd you say, Rhonda?
James and John.
I was good, but is that a different John? I get myself turned around. I'm thinking John. Yeah. See, this is my lack of detail orientation. Come on, hold me to task. But I think of John the Beloved as probably an S. James, and it may have been. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So.
But maybe when they were together, they were.
Well, there's usually we run in tandem with others that are probably different than us. I mean, that's when God sends them out 2 by 2. Jesus sends them out 2 by 2. Do you think there's maybe some intentionality to that? Mm-hmm. Like, hey, you know what? You're really strong. You're not as strong in this area as you are in this area. So if I put you 2 by 2, we're going to run together. Yeah. How many of you know Lance Woolnow? Do you know that name? Some of you know that name. I actually just heard Lance speak on this recently, and he made the comment that it's interesting to note that through scripture, anytime we see pairs of like D's and S's together and whatnot, the only time it works long term is when Jesus is present. And I was like, ooh, that'll preach. Make sure you keep Jesus in your relationship, because otherwise you're going to have some problems. High C's. Who do you think in scripture is probably a high C? Noah. Matthew. Who else? Moses. Yeah. What do you think Aaron was?
An S.
S or an I? I think probably in between, because especially I kind of think towards an I a little bit. And here's the thing. You and I are not just one. We are a blend of all of it. Like, as much as we joke about, some of us being lower C, higher C, different people have different elements. Now, so if you're a blend, can you imagine if you're a high D and a high C? Some internal conflict going on. You might need some prayer ministry later, because I need to get things done, but I got to make sure it's right. Well, which one am I going to do? Can you see where people have some conflict internally? And then if we have conflict internally, we can project it onto the people in front of us. And now I'm a victim of what you did to me. And yeah, we can just spiral that thing really quick, right? Fearfully and wonderfully made, and sometimes crazily made. But just recognizing that there's differences. high Ds. So let me go here. What I love is in the heart of God, we can find every attribute of all of that. Jesus has got all of it. He's representative. But I had not seen this until recently. The veil had 4 animals imprinted on it, is my understanding. They were 4 animals that represented the 4 types, the fullness of God's heart. And when the veil was torn, representing Jesus, like the fullness, and that we could enter in, it wasn't just that he died for the D's, or he didn't just die for the I's, it was for the fullness of humanity. Isn't that cool? I just found that out recently. I don't have all the scriptures to back it all up yet, but I'm fascinated by it. And then the other thing was the living creatures around the throne room, or around the throne. That if you look at it, it's the lion, the ox, the eagle, and the man. And that the lion being the D, the man being the I, the interactive, the ox being the stable, and the eagle being there. It's fascinating when you start putting on this lens where you can start looking through scriptures, and all of a sudden you start seeing things in a different lens. Was that a 3 minutes? So what we haven't gotten into here, but I want to give you guys a chance to do, is this. How many of you would like to know, high level, who you are? Yes, please.
Can you be any combination of those?
Oh, yeah.
There's some that don't really like.
Oh, yeah. You can be any. Some of the combinations I see come across my desk, I'm like, oh, wow, we're going to have some conversations. I know where some healing ministry is going to happen now. Because, yeah.
I was just looking at mine, and I have super high I, and then D is my second one, but S is actually not that far behind it, but then I have almost 0 C.
Okay.
I was thinking the same thing. We're probably a little bit of.
We are. We're totally a blend.
My husband's an IG as well, but it shows up so differently than
Yep.
the two of us.
It does. And this is just one layer.
Oh, that was mine.
Like, think about this. This is one, like, if you're making a cake, this is one piece. This is one ingredient, right? Like, this is your how. Like, when I do coaching, we go down deep and we do, like, your why. And so, even though I'm a low compliance score, I'm what they call a high intellectual driving force, which means I am a hunger-sucking knowledge person. I will go after stuff, especially profiles. And I will show up looking like a high C because I'm trying to gather all this information and look like I'm trying to follow the rules. But what I'm energized by is the learning. But I struggle with the compliance. Now, what I've given you is just a simple, easy hand tool so that you can, in light of what we talked about today, have something to take home. Reach out to me and say, hey, Kris, help me digest this, help me unpack this. If you want a more scientific version, obviously, as you know, I do this for a business. I work with people. And so if that's something you want, it's not my goal or premise to like sell anything today. I'm just making you aware, but that's why I'm giving you this tool so that you can at least kind of go, oh, you know what? I tend to show up more as this. The other thing, let me pass this one out to Krista. This one is kind of helpful in that it allows you to plot it. Remember when I said something about Tom and I being complete polar opposites? That was something like this one on the left, where it was like you could see your mountaintop. This is high level. This is not nearly as accurate as the ones that I use in coaching, but I wanted to give you something that you could take home today. Is this helpful? Yeah. So to wrap up, what are you taking away from today? What are you gaining from this interactive fun session?
We're all different and it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah. Is there room for shame in the kingdom? No. Who gets to open up the gift? I do. Yeah. I can get upset with nobody understanding me, but have I taken the time to even understand myself? Okay. How could you incorporate this into your ministry? How could you incorporate this into your coaching? Here's my encouragement. Do some more digging on this if this is important to you or interesting to you. There is a ton of free YouTube stuff out there on this. Understanding that you can walk in, here's one more. I didn't talk about the emotional triggers real deep, but I'm going to give you this. This is another way of looking at it. Thank you, Krista. This goes around the circle DISC. When you look at this page, it's going to have E, semicolon, and a word. That is their emotional trigger, or what you're going to see if they're emotional triggered. High Ds don't want to be taken advantage of. Like him, love him, hate him, I don't care. Donald Trump is 100% D. Just watch the guy. I mean, you just watch him. He's got to take charge. He walks into the room and he's got to be the man in charge, and he's got to take charge of the room, and he's going to run the show. That's who he is. Like him, love him, hate him, whatever. Obama is probably a high I. Charismatic, knows how to engage, knows how to draw in the people, interactive, influencer. People just loved him and they didn't know why. Part of it was he knew how to talk to people. He had that high interactive, charismatic personality. I could go down the list of presidents. Yeah. High I's are their biggest trigger. Okay, let me say this. High D's, if they feel like they've been taken advantage of, they're going to feel like they're going to look like they're angry. And so, like, what I have on here is how to diffuse them. Be clear, ask questions, focus on results with them, because they're task. Okay? High I's, their biggest emotional trigger is if they're not appreciated. Think about the high I in your room that, or in your life that's chitty chatty, like, hey, do you guys notice I did supper tonight? I made a meal. Say thank you. Oh, wait, that would be me. No, but recognizing high I's want to be appreciated. They want to be valued. Okay, how do you, they get accused of being passive aggressive, but helping them, affirm them, appreciate them, saying thank you to them is really important. High S's, you move too fast with them, what happens? Shut down. Yep, their biggest emotional trigger is if they don't feel safe. Now here's a fascinating nonverbal that you can watch for when you're ministering to somebody. I had this happen with a client last week. I said, so talk to me about, we were debriefing her assessment. I said, talk to me, how does it feel when you're like in a space where you don't feel safe or whatever? She goes, well, I guess when I'm in that space, what do you guys notice I'm doing? This is what she was doing the whole time she was talking about not feeling safe. She's literally physically turtling with her clothes. And just recognizing, like paying attention to people's body language when you're talking to them. High D's are going to be like in your face and going. High I's are going to have their hands going. And high S's are going to be doing this. High C's, their biggest emotional trigger is if they perceive they haven't done it right and they get defensive.
Can I speak to this in prayer ministry?
Absolutely.
Okay. This was probably one of the most helpful things that I ever learned in prayer ministry and dealing with people. When I was working at Teen Challenge is when I kind of came across this information. And I learned, like, when you're dealing with high D's, you got to be super direct with them. And they appreciate and they want that. And if they push, they're not trying to be disrespectful, just push back.
Yep.
You know, and they respect that, you know? And the I's tend to, I used to think like that they were hiding stuff in their past, but they feel big and then it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be like, there's got to be more. There's got to be, nope, it's done. They felt it big and it's done.
Yep.
You know, they also want to have fun in the session. So you need to have fun. High S's, I found like they need to be comfortable. They're going to take the longest to tell their story to you. They have to give all the details, you know. And if you push them too hard, they're going to go into that turtle shell.
You can literally
and
see
shut
them pull
down.
back
Oh, yeah.
physically in their chair.
And
They actually
C's,
pull in.
just don't ever tell them what to do. Okay.
And don't assume with a high
You
C.
submit
Seriously.
ideas to them to think about. Like, think about this when you go home and see what you think of it. Once they respect you, you can really pour into their life, but just don't ever tell them what to do. Yeah.
Exactly. And if in doubt, pay attention to what they're doing and mirror it. That's my simplest, most practical tool with this. If I don't know how to, like, I don't have enough context, if I notice you're slower and just you're sitting there in a quiet posture, if I slow myself down to match whatever you are, that's going to go the best. But what you said about D's, really, really important. When I was teaching nursing students, a lot of times the nurses were high S's and the doctors were high D's. And the doctors would be direct and these nurses would shut down, especially my nursing students. And I was like, no, put your big girl pants on, put your big boy pants on. We're going to stand up because high D's want you to talk back to them. They respect you more when you do that. Okay.